Namaste to everyone, dear students, scholars, and friends. Today we are going to have a discussion on how great rishis emerged from tribal society. This is an anthropological attempt under Vedic Anthropological Studies series. A detailed bibliographic references were available at the end of this lecture. Please have a look at this. It is a privilege to share these reflections shaped by more than 4 decades of anthropological fieldwork among Indian vulnerable tribal communities. Though sustained engagement with nearly 75 tribes, I have come to a deeply felt, professionally grounded understanding. Many of the great rishis of our tradition appear to have emerged from early tribal and forest based societies, carrying forward the ecological wisdom and lived experiences of those communities. From an anthropological perspective, Vedic knowledge did not arise in isolation from human society. The rishis were not detached figures removed from everyday life, rather, they were individuals formed within the food gathering, hunting, forest dwelling, and pastoral life worlds. In these early societies, knowledge was inseparable from survival, observing seasons, animals, plants, rivers, and stars, and maintaining ethical relationship with nature and community. When you examine the great sages such as Agastya, Bharadwaja, Vishwamitra, Atri, Vashishta, Drighatamas, Vedavyasa, and Valmiki, we see profound continuity between tribal knowledge systems and Vedic thought. Drawing upon classical texts, ethnographic research, and comparative indigenous studies, this lecture proposes that the Vedas are refined expressions of humanity's earliest ecological consciousness, living repositories of eternal earth wisdom rooted in tribal life worlds. This is an attempt to describe how ethnographically the great sages are associated with the tribal communities. First, I have taken great sage Agastya, who is the southern forest seer. Agastya stands as one of the clearest example of how Vedic wisdom emerged from forest-based life worlds. A revered sage of the Rigvedic period, Agastya and his wife Lopamudra are credited with hymns of the Rigveda, which are remarkable for their dialogue form, ecological imagery, and integration of household ethics with ascetic insight. These hymns do not present abstract theology, they speak through the language of forests, mountains, effort, fertility, and disciplined living. A striking verse from Rigveda mentions like this: Agastyam kanamanaha kanitraiha prajapaptyam balamichamanaha upovarna Vrishigruhaha Uposhamatya Deve Shijoja Jagamaha. This verse portrays Agastya's engaged in physical labor, digging, starving, and progeny of strength, reflecting a worldview grounded in lived experiences rather than ritual abstraction. This sloka also mirrors the practices of central Indian Baiga Bariya healers, who entered the forest at dawn and addressed medicinal plants with whispered petitions, seeking permission before harvesting and promising offerings in return. Agastya's dialogue hums echoes this same oral relations transmission of knowledge, where ecological understanding is acquired through conversation, ritual respect, and intimate engagement with living landscapes. Precisely the mode through which tribal wisdom survives across generations. And great rishi is Bharadwaja, the healer, seer of forest medicine. Bharadwaja represents the Vedic transformation of tribal healing traditions into systematic sacred knowledge. He is closely associated with hymns on health vitality, longevity, and protection, particularly reflected in other Vedic healing lore. Bharadwaja's ashram tradition emphasizes herbs, roots, and restorative practices rather than elaborate ritualism, indicating deep continuity with forest dependent societies. A verse from Atharva Veda mentions like this: Oshadayaha Sobarjijaha Sambandate Sahusrutaha Nakshatranamivo Jyotihi Sarvaha Samanaso Itaha. Aushadhiya mantraha, that is, herbs and mothers, perfectly mirrors the practice of Baiga, Gond, Kurumba, and Dongriya Kond healers, who approach the plant as sentient beings with agency and power. Among the most of the tribes, Baiga, Apatani, Aka, Adi, Mishmi, Kurumba, medicinal knowledge is transmitted orally through ritual chants, plant petitions, and apprenticeship, not written manuals. Bharadwaja's legacy show how early tribal ethnomedicine developed through generations of observation and survival became codified as Vedic healing science. His figures marks the moment when forest-based practical knowledge was elevated into sacred wisdom without losing its ecological humanity. Vishwamitra, the pastoral chief, turned cosmic seer. Vishwamitra's life vividly illustrates the transition from pastoral society to philosophical introspection. Originally a warrior chief leading cattle based clans, his transformation into a Brahmanish reflects the evolution of leadership grounded in migration, seasonal awareness, and sky observation. His most famous contribution, the Gayatri Mantra, is a solar invocation rooted in pastoral depends on sunlight, direction, and time. One of the sloka from Rig Veda, a opening image of the river dialogue, mentions like this: Praparvatana musati upastadasve iva vishite hasamane gaveva subre matara rihane vipasam sutudripayasa javete. The Gonds, Todas, and Dangars similarly rely on solar rhythms to guide cattle movement, grazing cycles, and ritual timing. Among the Todas and Kotas of Nilgiris, the sun governs the buffalo's rituals, just as Switar governs cosmic order in the Vedas. Gujars and Bakwals, Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand known for cattle buffaloes. Gaddis of Himachal Pradesh who are rearing sheep and goats. Rabri and Barwad of Rajasthan, Gujarat for camels, sheep, goats and camels. Bishnoi of Rajasthan protect nature and animals. Maldari of Gujarat, Dangar of Maharashtra, Karnataka who rear sheep. This shows Vishwamitra's asceticism emerges not from urban renunciation but prolonged observation of land, sky, and life cycles during migration. His philosophy shows how pastoral ecological intelligence has internalized and transformed into metaphysical insights, bridging tribal way of life and Vedic spirituality. Maharshi Atri is the sky watching and cosmic observer. Atri represents the ancient human practice of reading the cosmos for survival, ritual order, and well being. In the Rig Veda, hymns attributed to the Atri lineage reflect keen observation of the sunlight cycles, and cosmic harmony. The image of Atri seeking the sun symbolizes humanity's early scientific and spiritual curiosity, an effort to restore light, order, and health. Importantly, the Atri tradition later becomes associated with healing knowledge. The classical Ayurvedic authority Charaka Samhita traces its teachings to Punarvasu Atreya, regarded as a descendant of Atri. In this way, celestial observation evolved into physiological understanding, linking cosmic rhythm with bodily balance. Among the tribal societies such as the Birhor, Bharia, Korova, and Santal, and many other tribes, lunar and solar cycles regulate hunting, gathering, fertility rites, and seasonal movement. Similarly, Northeast Indian communities like the Kashi and Mizo preserve lunar calendars for agriculture and ritual life. This continuity suggests that early Vedic cosmology did not arise in isolation but emerged from experiential ecology knowledge. Thus, Atri represents a transitional intellectual movement from tribal sky knowledge to Vedic cosmology, from Vedic cosmology to Ayurvedic healing and science. Vasistha, the pastoral sage and clan ethicist. Vasistha is deeply connected with the pastoral clans, cattle wealth, and ethical governance. His role as a royal protector to the Ishwakula dynasty reflects how pastoral wisdom shaped early political ethics. Cattle, central to pastoral survival, became sacred symbols of abundance, moral order, and cosmic balance in his hives. One of the sloka from Rigveda mentions like this: "E venukam sindhu me vistatarane venukam veda me bichagana e venukam dasarajne sudasam pravadimdro brahmanavo vasishtaha." The Gujars, Rabri, Dangars, Kurumbas, and Toda tribes similarly organize social life around cattle, seasonal movement, and ethical restraint. Among these groups, harming cattle is both an economic and moral transgression, and idea echoed in Vasistha's teachings. Thus, Vasistha's significance lies in transforming clan-based pastoral norms into universal dharma. His philosophy does not reject tribal values. It stabilizes them within emerging agrarian states. He represents the institutionalization of pastoral ethics into Vedic social order. Dirghatamas, the blind seer and inner vision. Dirghatamas stands apart as a seer whose wisdom arises from inner perception rather than sensory observation. His aims are deeply symbolic, abstract, and cosmological, reflecting shamanic traditions where blindness or isolation enhances inner sight. Anthropologically, such figures are common in tribal societies where shamans rely on trance, dreams, and intrusion. Example for shamanic traditions among the tribals: Arunachal Pradesh, a hub for shamanism with tribes like the Mishmi, Apatani, Niashi, Aka, Adi, and Bugon, who have indigenous practice for rituals and healing. Among the tribes of Odisha, the Savara and Manikardiya tribes have shamans who protect against evil spirits and diseases, often called by spirits for their role. In Western India, the Bhil tribes relies on their shaman, the Barwa, for life cycle events, healing and connecting with supernatural forces. From Northeast India, shamans are integral to the identity of Nagas, Mijos, and Manipuris, encompassing healing and community cohesion. From South India, Kurumba's faith practitioners in South Indian incorporate shamanic practices through divinely possessed. Thus, Dirgatmas transforms this primal into philosophical reflection, making a moment for tribal trance states of Vedic metaphysics. Valmiki, the forest hunter turned poet seer. Valmiki is perhaps the clearest embodiment of tribal origin within classical literature, traditionally remembered as a forest dwelling, hunting, or path god. His transformation into a sage occurs through compassion toward a wounded bird. This movement marks the ethical evolution from survival based hunting to moral reflection. One of the sloka mentions like this: तस्मै वाल्मीकये नमो ब्रह्मणे कवये नमः आदिकाव्यस्य कार्तारं रामायण महर्षये. This sloka explicitly honors Valmiki as Adi Kavi, the first poet. Anthropologically, this title is significant. It recognizes the moment when oral forest-based storytelling traditions, that is, rooted in tribal societies, were transformed into classical Sanskrit literature. The invocation preserves memory of Valmiki not merely as a court poet but a forest sage whose compassion and lived experience gave birth to epic narration. Forest tribes such as the Gauls, Santal, Chenchu, Valmiki, Jain Kuruba, Cholnayakan, Kutiyakanda, Korava, and many other Indian primitive tribes follow strict hunting ethics, killing only for need, accompanied by apological rituals. Valmiki's famous verse, Ma Nishada, arises from this same moral ecology. The Ramayana preserves immense tribal knowledge, forest roots, medicinal plants, animal symbolism, and clan societies like Nishadas and Vanaras. Valmiki thus transforms oral tribal storytelling into Sanskrit epic, proving that classical Indian literature is rooted in forest civilization. I am interested to bring you one of the important event which has happened among the Wongi tribes of Little Andaman when I was doing my research in 1995. The Wongi tribe never kills a pregnant wild boar. They will select the boars for hunting, and also if it is smaller in size, they won't kill. In the same way, the Jarva of Andaman Islands, if they catch the fish which is lesser than this size, even if they catch the fish lesser than this size, again they will leave it to the water. That is the ethical way of living of the many of the tribes which I have observed all over India. Vedavyasa, the organizer of tribal memory. Vedavyasa represents the final crystallization of millennia of oral knowledge, born to Satyavati, associated with fishing communities, and raised near river confluences. Vyasa embodies liminal tribal geographies. His life bridges forest hermitage and emerging kingdoms. One of the sloka from Mahabharata traditions mentions like this: Vyasam Vashishtanapartam Sakteham Pautramakalmasham Parasaratma Jam Vande Sukotatam Taponidam. Almost all the tribal societies in India, for example, Gond, Koya, Kolam, Pradhans, Naga, Baiga, and Santals, storytellers, preserve genealogy, cosmology, and law through oral narration. Vyasa performs the same function at a civilizational scale, compiling the Vedas, Mahabharatas, and Puranas. He does not invent new knowledge, he organizes ancestral wisdom. Vyasa's role confirms that Indian civilization advanced not by abandoning tribal memory but by preserving and structuring it for future generations. Thus, the Vedas must be understood not merely as a sacred text but as a living repositories of accumulated tribal intelligence, codified ecological wisdom, ethical discipline, and cosmic awareness. The Rishis embody what may rightly be called as eternal earth wisdom, a timeless understanding that true spirituality arises from intimate engagement with nature and society. In recognizing the tribal roots of Vedic thought, we rediscover the human ecological and experiential foundations of India's spiritual heritage. At the end, I would like to say a few words. Anthropology is not merely the study of tribes or cultures. It is the study of humanity's search for meaning. In observing lived experience, ritual, and ecology, we uncover the roots of philosophy and the birth of wisdom. To study humanity with humility and empathy is to approach the spirits of the Upanishads themselves. Very much for your kind hearing. If there are any mistakes, please excuse me. It is only an ethnographic attempt to tell to the students of anthropology, social sciences, how the great rishis emerged from tribal society. I request you to forward this link to your friends, students, scholars, and group people. Thank you. Hope we will meet you in another discussion. Thank you. पुष्टिवर्धनम्